Welcome back to the Keys podcast. I'm your host, Lillian Hernandez, but you can call me Lily, like the flower, because we are learning and growing together. And we are back. This is a new era of the Keys podcast. I am now doing video, so definitely visit thekeyswork.com so you can subscribe to us on YouTube and watch us visually. If you love and enjoy the audio experience, that will continue to live as well. So thank you first and foremost for all of your support. And I'm pumped for this upcoming era of the Keys podcast because I'm still going to continue to give you business, real estate, mindset tips. We're going to go in depth and beyond the surface and talk to other like-minded individuals, other real estate, business industry experts, as well as some of my colleagues who are also experts and some of my friends that I've made and the community members that I've met along the way in this journey, because community is key. But before we move on, I want to get into the background of the Keys podcast, who I am, what the show is about, and what you can expect moving forward. So that way there are no questions. But again, if you have questions, simply email me thekeyswork@gmail.com and visit thekeys.podcast.com so you can join our newsletter, be a part of the community, and find out when episodes are dropping, maybe even getting exclusive clips and submitting your questions if you have questions for the show. But what is the Keys? What are the Keys? Who are the Keys? Let's jump straight into all of that right now before we move forward with this show and the upcoming season. Okay, so first and foremost, again, my name is Lillian, but you can call me Lily, and I'm born and raised in San Francisco, California. We're going to jump a few decades, but real estate is the industry I've worked in for the past 21 years and counting. I have owned my business since 2018 when I officially said I quit to my 9-to-5 of almost 15 years to do this independently. And I always tell people, real estate has been just like a boomerang. Every time I try to throw it away, it finds its way back into my life. So now I'm in a season of embracing this industry and really doing my best to give back to those that are coming behind me or are alongside me in this journey. And again, taking up space in an industry that can often feel like is run by gatekeepers. And my slogan is, I'm giving you the keys. There are no gatekeepers here. And I stand by that. I truly do. So this show is all about giving you the keys to unlock the doors to not just the best version of you, but also how to get into this industry confidently with courage, as well as knowing you have resources in this industry that are willing to help and show up for you. So if this show does that for you, then my job is done. But I know there's a lot of work to do. There are a lot of topics to uncover. There are so many people to talk to that I'm excited to do so. Some names will be familiar. You might see some new faces as well that people I've never met or spoken to, but I'm just intrigued by their journey and their stories, as well as maybe some people that I've coached. Yes, I do run a coaching business as well. So if you are interested in real estate, becoming a real estate transaction coordinator, or finding ways to just grow your business using social media, using email marketing, whatever the case may be, reach out to me directly, thekeyswork@gmail.com. I'm an open book. I'm willing to share, but I'm also willing to work with you one-on-one and give you that personalized, valuable experience to upgrade your business, and reach those that you are intended to reach through your business. So, how did I get into real estate? Some of you may or may not know my story, but I'm going to share it again. And what started as a simple college job ended up being my lifelong, thus far, career. And when I say a college job, I truly mean that. Meaning I was about 19, 20 years old, and I just needed money to buy my CDs and eat burritos. It was that simple. I was in college. I was playing sports. I'd never really had a real job. And I was applying everywhere you can imagine that any typical young teenager / young adult would apply to, aka the mall. So because I didn't really have any experience, I wasn't getting any responses. Then one day, one of my good friends reached out to me and he said, "Hey, do you need a job?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Call this person and go to the interview." So I'm thinking it's a referral. I find out later the job interview was for him and he couldn't go. So I went in his place. That story to me, 20 plus years later, still cracks me up, and I'm still friends with this person. So shout out to you for hooking it up. But I ended up going to his job interview instead of him. It worked out, and I ended up getting a part-time job at a real estate office with no experience, no knowledge, no interest in real estate outside of what I hear people talking about. What I know from, buy real estate to be rich. That was the extent of my knowledge up until that point at the tender age of 20. So now I have this job. I'm going to college. I'm also playing sports. I'm also coaching. So I'm doing the most. But ultimately, I'm realizing I'm in my 20s now. I have to grow up. I have to pay rent. I'm still living with my parents. And now I have to get it together. So if you're someone out there listening to this who's in their early 20s, not sure what to do, sometimes you just have to go out there and do it. Even if it means you are going to show up to someone else's job interview instead of them. It was a risk, but it was a risk that worked out in my favor. So I have this great job. I'm making money. I'm making a lot of good money. In fact, more than minimum wage. I'm in college. I'm having fun. Then all of a sudden, things are starting to shift in my life. And I realize I now have to pay bills and rent at home. My parents are starting to slowly and then eventually quickly cut me off financially. Not that they were rich financially and we were living in a lap of luxury, but it gets to a point where you see your daughter out there working and you're still working. You have to cut ties eventually. And I had to learn how to support myself. And that's exactly what happened. So therefore, there was a job opening for a transaction coordinator job at the location I was working at. And at that point, I was their assistant. I was the office admin, but I mostly did work for the transaction coordinators. Prior to this, I'd never heard of a transaction coordinator. I'd never read a contract, nothing. But when the position opened up, the few months that I had experience in, they were telling me, you can do it. You're qualified. You're ready. And I said, are you sure? And at that point, I'd never had like a full-time job, but I trusted what they taught me. I was also very competitive at that point. So I didn't want anyone to come in and take over the work and now have to have another boss after I had just invested this time in that field, in that job with those people. So I said, I can do it. I can do the job. I will take it. And ultimately, they gave me the job as the transaction coordinator. Again, another risk I took because I really wasn't that experienced. The two of them had quit on the spot. And the training I got was probably in total what felt like 5 minutes, but in total maybe like an hour of full-on training because they were quitting. They both were moving on, and I just had to step up. And that taught me a lot as a young adult was I can work under pressure, but I can't work under fear. And I just have to show up. So I went on that journey as the office transaction coordinator until I couldn't anymore. But I learned so much before I was laid off because I was put into these really intense positions as a TC to show up, to audit files, to read contracts, to manage timelines, to manage adults. There were some adults that I worked with at that office that were twice my age. Children, they were grandparents, so I was just this 21-year-old at that point, I'd now turned 21 going on 22 with 1.5 years of experience in real estate. And now I'm in charge of these $1 million contracts. What is life, right? But I know many of you are stepping into this position at any age right now. So I want to continuously share my experiences and let you know how I've done it. And that's why I did start my coaching program, because I know what it's like to be left out on a limb, to take a risk, to be out on a limb and say, I can do this. but have little to no training and just figuring it out blindly and with limited to no resources or help on the side. So if I can be that for someone out there or many, that is my goal that I'm going to continuously pursue now in real time in 2026 and beyond. So the recession happened in 2008. I ended up getting laid off. So at this point, I had been with the company for about 3.5 years. My first real big girl job. I'm entering adulthood. I had just purchased my dream car, way out of my budget. Before the term financial literacy existed, all I knew was make money, spend money, and do your best to not overspend your money or get into debt. So at this point, I didn't listen to any of that, aside from make money, spend money. And the first thing I got was a new car. My car payment was $700, not including insurance, and it had a Hemi V8 engine. So we're talking filling up our gas tank on a weekly basis, sometimes twice a week, depending on where I've gone in that week. And I was working now to officially survive and pay for that, and as well as pay for my social life, which was very active back then. But so then the recession hits and I get laid off and I'm crying, like wailing in the office because I'm just in shock. I can't believe it. Like, how am I going to pay my rent? How am I going to do all this? Because I didn't have the skills and the tools to know how to save or how to invest or to not buy a car that was $700 a month just for the payment, not the maintenance, not the gas, not the insurance. I was only taught so much by my parents, and the internet was very scarce back then. There wasn't that much. There wasn't any social media outside of like MySpace, and Facebook was just starting to pop off. YouTube, I don't think existed yet. So gaining any of that experience or knowledge was based on my experience in just doing it and being in it, having to learn what it's like to get your car repossessed, having to learn what it's like to be in debt and not have a job. So what did I do during that recession? I got on unemployment, just full transparency. I'm not ashamed to admit that. I got on unemployment and I went back to school. I said, well, I dropped out of college to take this job. I no longer have this job, so I might as well go back to what I know best, which is being in school. So I went back to school. I started to do that, collect unemployment, collect financial aid, because when you're not making money, you are then considered below the poverty line, which then qualifies you for financial aid as well. So I was living the good life, honestly, going to school, doing that. I still had my car at that point. And again, this is going back to the MySpace days, so I'm definitely aging myself. But I saw a bulletin on MySpace for a DJ/party promoter opening. And at that point, that's what I wanted to, that was the industry I wanted to go in. That's the industry I thought I would be in. I thought I would either be working in the music industry or the sports industry after college. But things took a turn, obviously, and I had to survive and get a job, which I did. But now that I no longer had that job, I can pursue what it is I really wanted to pursue. So I did just that. I started taking business classes. I started taking music business classes, producer classes. And then I saw this bulletin for an opening. I instantly messaged her. It was for a woman DJ in my area. I was just taking risks, shooting my shot, doing everything I could to just be in the mix. Because at that point, I was going to parties every weekend, almost every day, and I was getting tired of spending all of my money that I was running out of, because I had a little bit of a savings. I had a little bit of money that I was making from unemployment, but it still wasn't enough. And I remember distinctively sitting back at a party that I was attending almost weekly. All of my friends are partying. We're all having fun. And I'm just standing there looking at everyone. And I remember I said to myself, how can I get paid to go to parties? I'm tired of spending my money and getting nothing in return. And I think that's where the business acumen, the entrepreneurial spirit really started to kick into gear, which I've always had because I used to sell candy when I was a kid. And that was fun. but it didn't continue because life and society tells you have to get a job. No one teaches you how to be an entrepreneur or how to run a business. So little did I know, all of these decisions that I was making would eventually feed into the future me that is me today. So although I was unemployed, I was still making decisions that aligned with me, but also fed my spirit and my joy. So I could still go out to parties, I could still make money, and I can still go to school and figure it all out from there. So I did just that. And I ended up promoting for a DJ for about almost 2 years. That garnered me a lot of attention. I became popular within the Bay Area scene. I started to promote for a DJ crew and their parties and their events. I made a bunch of friends, built a community, built a network, and that was amazing. It taught me so much about marketing. It taught me so much about how to promote yourself, how to get people to show up to your events with nothing other than word of mouth, a flyer, your social media, which was just MySpace back then. I thought I was just having fun, getting paid to do what I enjoy and be around cool people that were DJs and bartenders and promoters. Little did I know, I was going to use a lot of these marketing skills to then launch my business, my real estate transaction coordinator business 10 years later. So what happened throughout that decade from 2008, when I was laid off, to 2018? Well, after about a year or 2 years of being unemployed, I was at a going away party for someone that I used to work with at that office. And what happens when someone moves away? Their position opens up. So I said, hey, I'm willing to come back if you guys are willing to hire me back. And they said, are you serious? And I said, yeah, I need money. So I ended up going back to that company and working my way through the ranks. It was a small family-owned company, so there weren't really too many ranks to move up from. But any opportunities I could pursue to learn a new skill, I was doing that. So I became IT. I was working closely with anyone that came in to help with the internet or computers. I was guiding them, giving them tours, asking them questions. If the copy machine or the fax machine went down, I was sitting with the tech person or the inspector, whoever it was, to come fix it. I was asking them questions so that the company could save money if it was something I could do on my own, or that I could teach someone else in the office. When social media was starting to bubble, I was saying, hey, I could do flyers, I could do posts, I could do all this stuff, I could do videos. I was stepping into all of those roles, not realizing that it was going to benefit me later on in my life when I became independent. I was just doing it to learn, to be of value, because I was so traumatized from being laid off that I didn't want to go through that again. I didn't want to be someone that just sat in the office and collected a check. I wanted to be busy. I wanted to learn. And also being the competitive and eager, willing person I am to learn, I showed up every time I was taught something new. I learned how to hire someone. I learned how to fire someone. I learned how to have customer service on the phone. I learned how to greet people in person. I learned how to do shipping, receiving. There's so many different elements that played into my role when I came back to that office that benefited me, not just in that moment, because I was able to get the office manager position. I was able to become the lead transaction coordinator for the entire office, as well as learn marketing, learn other positions and other jobs and skills that were required. Whether I dealt with the banks directly, I was still going downstairs to drop off checks, deposit checks, pick up receipts. There were so many skills that I learned that had I not immersed myself back into that world, I would not be here today to give back, to teach, to share my knowledge, to coach. So I did that for the next basically 10 years until it was time to go. And I finally got the courage to say I quit. The I quit story wasn't I woke up that day and said, I'm going to quit my job. No, this was a 2, maybe 3-year journey that I was on. My leap of faith took about 2 years to finally leap. So it wasn't this idea I had and I executed it right away. No, I still had to work on myself. I still had to create new habits, build new habits, fix my mindset, At this point, my car was repossessed. My dream car that I had purchased had been repossessed. I had credit card debt. I had student loan debt because there was another stint with school that I went back and tried to do that at night that I failed at, but there's no such thing as failure. It's only data and lessons. So outside of just a bill, I did learn a lot on that, I guess you could say, third stint at going back to college. Now I'm working full time, but I'm getting antsy. I'm starting to feel like there has to be more to life than me pushing papers. I've been at this job. This is the only job I have. Why am I still here? Yes, I initiated all of the raises and all of the job titles because they didn't believe in me. I believed in me, and I inserted myself in those jobs. No one offered them to me. Let me reiterate that. Every raise, every job title, every skill that I learned in my lifetime of working at that real estate office, I initiated it. Even back when I first took on the transaction coordinator role before I was laid off, I stepped up into those roles. I realized that after I quit, that no one was there, no one was giving me these opportunities. I created them for myself. So I said, I need to change then. If I don't feel comfortable quitting my job right now, then I need to figure out where it is that I'm lacking and improve myself in that area. So I literally changed everything about myself. I stopped promoting parties. I started going out a lot less. My friend group started to change. My environment started to change. How I showed up for work was changing. Instead of driving, I was taking the bus on purpose. I was walking to the BART station and taking BART. I was walking home. Sometimes it would take me 2 hours to walk home, but I would do it just to challenge myself and push myself to show I'm capable of doing hard things, but also to challenge my brain to not be caught up in the same routine that I was bound to for up until that point, a decade plus. And I did that for a good 2 years. And I knew my exit was coming up soon. I just didn't know what it was going to look like. I didn't know an exact date. I didn't know how I was going to say it. I just knew that 2018, I'm quitting my job. So from 2016 to 2018, I worked on myself. Instead of listening to music, I was listening to podcasts. I was reading books. I was listening to ebooks, audiobooks, and reading ebooks. I was basically turning my life around. I started working out. I did a fitness challenge with my friends at the time. I was finding ways to keep myself accountable so I could keep myself focused on the long-term goal. Even though I didn't know when it was going to happen exactly, I knew it was going to happen. But again, it comes down to how am I going to show up? How am I going to do this? And as life would have it, things started to align. And it wasn't in the way I had envisioned. But now, in hindsight, looking back, I realized that had certain things not happened so drastically, I would have still been at that job. Like, God knows me and knows that if I'm not yanked out of a certain situation, I'm never going to save myself. And I needed saving at that time. And basically, January 2018, I found out my mom had breast cancer, and I found out that my grandmother's congestive heart failure was getting worse. And instantly, having a young mom, I was thinking, I have to be home. I need to be present for appointments. How can I make this work in my favor and still have a job? Because at that point, I was like, well, now I can't quit. I need to be able to support my family, so I can't quit. So I was starting to run away from my dreams and settle and go back to my old ways. And when I brought it up to the company, they basically said, write a proposal, we'll consider it, and we'll go from there. And they knew what was going on. Small family business. I'd been working there for almost half my life at this point, definitely all of my adult life. So I'm expecting them to know and understand when family needs you, you show up. Plus, their daughter worked remote, so I said it shouldn't be a problem if I want to work remotely. And this was before working remote was common. So then I present them my proposal. I say I want to work from home, even I'm willing to negotiate that to once a week, once a month, whatever it takes. I just want to be available. They rejected that. they said, no, we need you to fill the seats and make it look busy here. And we'll give you some more money, but you can't work from home. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. Your daughter does the same job I do from across the country, but you want me to fill seats? And not only that, I was the office manager. They took away my office and they started making me do more work. They started making me do work that the front desk admin was responsible for. And then I was getting in trouble for not doing his job. It was weird. But again, looking back in hindsight, it was everything aligning in my favor to make me so uncomfortable that I had no choice but to leave them. And if you're in that situation right now where you feel stuck or you feel like there's no way I'm ever going to get out of this job because I don't know what I'm going to do after. Believe me, it is scary, but there are ways to take those leaps with faith as well as saving your money. Because during those periods, the 2 years before I quit my job, I was going out a lot less, which meant I was spending less money. I got rid of my car, which meant that freed up a whole lot more money because I wasn't having to pay for a car at that point. Until I did get it back and eventually paid it off because I became more responsible, more aware of how to spend my money wisely. But having a savings really saved me. That's the point of it all. I know we want our money to last and for us to retire, but if you need to be saved right now, then save yourself. Change your habits, change your environment. If it's not the job that you can change the route you take to work. Change your haircut. I cut my hair short the year before I quit my job. Months actually before I quit my job. I had really long hair. So I was changing a lot of things about myself up until I could finally change the one thing I was set out to change, which was my work environment, my career. So when all that happened with my family and they rejected my proposal, I knew then and there that I had to say, I'm out of here. I'm going to quit. And that's when my journey into the unknown really began. And it is one of the best decisions I ever made for myself. And I have no regrets. It was the first time in my life I ever said I was proud of myself because I knew what it took. I knew the work, the sleepless nights, the tears, the struggles, the saving, the saying no to people, the setting boundaries that it required to show up for me. Even though I was doing it for my family and I wanting to be present, ultimately it was a decision I had to make for me to embody this new version I needed to become in order for my goals to align and to happen, to come into fruition. So it's all about embodying who you want to become. And that's what The Keys is all about. Because had I not made that decision, I wouldn't have been able to be present for seeing my mom recover, being there for the last year of my grandmother's life, being present for family and situations, going to Little League games, doing all the things that I wished I had done when I was sitting in that office miserable, when nothing was happening, when we had no business and it was just quiet and the office was empty and I'm just there to unlock and lock the doors. I believed in a deeper, more quality life for myself. And no one was ever going to give it to me. No one was going to grant me the permission to go pursue it. No one was ever going to tell me, you deserve better. What I learned over the course of those years working at that office, again, no one was going to give me the raise. No one was going to offer me the job positions. I pursued those. So if I want to quit, if I want to start a business, if I want to just take a summer off to be present for family, I have to initiate that. And not be afraid of the repercussions. And I will say again, having a little bit of savings in my account, having the money to just give me the peace of mind and the clarity and the time to think freely without worrying about how I'm going to pay my bills went a long way. And here we are in 2026. And I've been self-employed for 8 years. Officially, when this episode comes out, my journey to becoming self-employed started 8 years ago exactly. And I'm here to give you the keys of how I survived in this industry, real estate, this long, with little to no resources outside of just go do it. And I want to break that down for you. I want to talk to other individuals that have been in my position or in different positions and make it work. so you can feel confident in your decisions in life, in your career, in your family relationships, in your personal life, because all of it's connected. In my story that I've shared, that some of you may or may not have heard until now, it wasn't just about the work or the job or the pay. It was how I woke up in the morning and chose to have a positive mindset and tell myself, I can do hard things. I can do this. I'm capable. I'm worthy. I had to keep telling myself that because I didn't believe it at first. I didn't believe in myself. I didn't believe in anything outside of just stay small in this office. They're going to find out that you don't know how to use Excel and you're never going to get a job anywhere else. You don't have a college degree. You're in debt. No one's going to hire you. You're unqualified. Like, these are stories I was telling myself every day until I said enough is enough. Enough is enough. I am enough. And once I started telling myself every day, even when I didn't believe it, it got to a point where I started to slowly believe it. Even the music I listen to, I love music. I was listening to motivational music, positive, like pump up music. I was reading stories about athletes and their background and how they got, and how they became the great athletes that they were. So I was still immersed in the things I enjoyed, but I just changed how I perceived it, how I consumed it. And that eventually led me to becoming the person that I needed to be in 2018 when I quit my job and was standing 10 toes down, standing on business for real. Because of all of those decisions, everything, all of the work, the 10,000 hours, the sleepless nights, the hungover nights, everything, all of it led to that moment. So now we're going to uncover the keys to how I got through the last 8 years, and God willing, what are the next 8 years going to look like? I don't know, but stay tuned. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for allowing me the space and the time to share. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you're listening to the audio version of this, please leave a rating and or a comment, a review of how you're enjoying the show, or maybe you're not enjoying the show. Either way, I want to hear from you all. I'm open to feedback. Again, we are learning and growing together. This is just the beginning. We're just getting started in this new era of the keys, this new era of me, Lillian Hernandez, but you can call me Lily, like the flower, because we're in this together. And I do care, which is why I still have my brand Transaction Care. But I realized a lot of you still want to learn about all things transaction coordination, which is why Transaction Care will be exclusively for that. And the keys is going to be more in-depth, behind the scenes, day in the life content of myself and other real estate professionals in this industry, sharing their stories, sharing their tips, sharing their wisdom with you all each and every week, unless otherwise noted or it's a holiday. But with that said, thank you again for listening. This has been the first video episode of the Keys podcast, but episode 88 and counting. So we have 87 other episodes that you can go binge and listen to, catch up on. Let me know your favorites. Let me know who stands out. Let me know if you have questions you want answered on the show, or if there's a certain person you want me to interview as well. So much more is ahead. Stay tuned. Hit that subscribe button. Make sure you leave a comment. Let me know where you're tapped into, and we're going to go from there. So until the next episode, my name is Lillian Hernandez, and this is the Keys podcast. I'm giving you the keys. There are no gatekeepers here. Talk soon.